This episode contains spoilers for Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Cinephile Gamers Podcast. I am your host, Bo Smith, and great news, guys. We are now at 10,999,990 listeners away from tying with the Joe Rogan podcast. So to celebrate, I wanted to do a review on a video game series that I grew up with and I still enjoy revisiting to this day, and that is Kingdom Hearts. We'll start at the first game and go over each game individually, so it won't be an ultra long episode and it'll be easier to digest as well. So, for those unfamiliar with Kingdom Hearts, it's an action JRPG that was released for the PlayStation 2 on March 28th, 2002. So, it's celebrating its 20th anniversary, so happy 20th to the Kingdom Hearts franchise. It was created by Square Enix in collaboration with Disney Interactive Studios, and it was just a lucky chance it was made. At the time, Square Enix and Disney of Japan shared the same office building, and a producer for Square was in the elevator when a Disney executive joined in, and he happened to have an idea about an RPG game that would involve Disney characters and their licenses. And this led to Disney showing interest and eventually giving the okay to use licensing for the game as well as co-produce it. Just goes to show you that you should really have an elevator pitch at your disposal at all times. While I'll be talking about the original release, for this review, I will be mostly covering the remastered version, Kingdom Hearts Final Mix. So, let's jump into the game. Imagine yourself in 2002. You go to your local Best Buy and you see a cover of a giant heart-shaped moon behind some anime characters with Donald Duck and Goofy? Your interest is piqued, so you get the game, start it up, and it starts like this. A techno J-pop song with cutting-edge pre-rendered graphics, and this one character being swept by a tidal wave, and all of a sudden falling from the sky, then going back into the ocean, and standing in a dark void until a crystal glass pedestal with Snow White on it appears beneath him. What the hell is going on? Welcome to Kingdom Hearts. The story is of a boy named Sora, and his life is about to be changed forever. You start out on a group of islands known as the Destiny Islands, and the foreshadowing is very heavy-handed. You and your two friends, Riku and Kairi, want to go on an adventure and decide to build a raft in search of new worlds. As this is going on, you're shown Disney Castle, where Mickey Mouse is king of this world. Yes, that Mickey Mouse. However, he has quietly disappeared on a secret mission. He leaves behind a letter for his trusted knight and magician, Goofy and Donald respectively, and tells them to head to a world called Traverse Town and meet with Leon and begin searching for the one who has the key. It's at this time that Sora sees his world being torn to shreds by a black hole-looking object, and these dark shadow creatures begin attacking him. He finds Riku, who acts really odd and says that the door is finally open, and encourages Sora to join him in this dark portal. As Sora tries to reach out for Riku's hand, a bright light flashes, and Riku is gone. But Sora is holding a legendary weapon known as the Keyblade, which is literally like a sword shaped like a key. Sora then finds Kairi, who gets swept up by a blast of darkness and phases through him. Sora wakes up in Traverse Town, where he meets Leon, Sid, Yuffie, and Aerith from the Final Fantasy series, who explain to him that his world has disappeared and he wields a weapon that can defeat creatures known as Heartless and save the worlds from being consumed by darkness. It's at this point Sora, Donald, and Goofy run into each other and have to fight a giant Heartless. After defeating it, Donald and Goofy ask Sora to join them in traveling to different worlds to find King Mickey and to ward off the darkness, while Sora also continues to look for Kairi and Riku. And this, my friends, is the simplest the plot will ever get in this series. So the rest of the game, you travel to familiar Disney worlds and team up with famous characters and help defeat a colorful cast of villains and lock each world's heart so the Heartless will not consume more worlds. So what makes this version of the game different from the original? First off, there are a couple of new cutscenes added to give some additional story. Along with this, there are two new difficulties for the game: Final Mix Beginner and Final Mix Proud. The new beginner mode gives Sora 2 great accessories, 8 power-ups, 8 defense-ups, and 4 AP points, which we'll get to in a minute. Final Mix Proud makes enemy attacks stronger and makes your gummy ship deal less damage. Final Mix also adds new weapons and abilities for Sora to learn. For people new to the series, I definitely recommend going in the beginner route because it does give you that boost in strength and defense that you need while also being able to explore the game for yourself. Now, this is where we're going to get into the gameplay. Kingdom Hearts at its core is a hack and slash game. You'll spend most of your combat fighting enemies with the Keyblade and using special combat abilities acquired throughout the game. You'll also have a magic points bar, or MP, where you can cast both offensive and defensive spells to help out in battle. These spells include Blizzard, Fire, Thunder, Cure, Arrow, Gravity, and Stop. Throughout the game, you'll acquire these and can even upgrade them to a level 3 version that becomes more powerful. You can also use summons in fights. These are considered souls who lost their worlds, but because their heart was so strong, they were preserved in special gems. They also use magic power and can replace your party members in special situations. These summons include Simba, Dumbo, Bambi, Mushu, Genie, and Tinkerbell, but the last two actually agreeing to join your quest after visiting their worlds. Finally, you can gain abilities that will allow you to perform new combat moves or give you passive abilities. These typically come from leveling up your team or defeating certain bosses and require using ability points, or AP. Throughout your journey, you'll also gain access to new weapons for your party that can help increase strength or magic. Sora will usually acquire new Keyblades after sealing a world's keyhole and will be based on that world. Other times you can also get them through defeating optional bosses or by crafting it. You can also gain accessories that may help increase your strength, MP, AP, or health. I have mentioned it a couple times now, but you can craft items, accessories, and weapons throughout your game. Midway through the story, you'll have access to the Moogle shop, and if you have the right materials, you can craft special items for it. Whew! That is the gameplay in a nutshell. So let's move on to what I like about this game. The mix of Disney characters and Final Fantasy characters seems really odd, and it wouldn't work, but it actually is fun to see. It's almost like a fanfic idea. The fact that Cloud from Final Fantasy VII fights Hercules will always be entertaining to me. You actually have several of the voice actors from these Disney properties reprising their roles. The most notable ones to me are James Woods as Hades and Catherine Beaumont as Alice, who still sounds like the same little girl 50 years later. There are some characters that don't use the original actors, but for the most part, they still sound pretty similar. While the dialogue is never the strongest part of these games, the voice acting is solid all the way around. Sora is voiced by Haley Joel Osment, who has previously starred in The Sixth Sense and AI, and Disney legends Tony Anselmo and Bill Farmer have also been continuing to voice Donald and Goofy respectively. While I've already mentioned the gameplay mechanics, I like how everything is implemented. Sora has a naturally floaty style to his movement, but since he's never really fought before, the way he swings his Keyblade around is very basic and can be a little slow. I'm not sure if that's an intentional choice or not on the developer's part, but if it is, I can definitely respect that. The way you progress with abilities is great too. Once you have the basics like guard and dodge roll, they really help level the playing field, and some of these more specialized moves have a very stylish animation to it and can really make you feel like you've come a long way since leaving the island. I like most of the Disney worlds included here as well. You'll travel to places like Olympus Coliseum, Agrabah, Atlantica, Neverland, Halloween Town, and a couple of original worlds. In some of these worlds you can switch out Donald or Goofy for another party member that can fight alongside you and has their own unique abilities. Your interaction with these characters and their story is really great too because you take a pivotal role in their stories. Some of the worlds are somewhat original as well. Jack Skellington, for instance, is trying to incorporate the Heartless into the next Halloween until things go wrong. Ariel doesn't meet Prince Eric in this story, and Hercules is already an established hero and you just compete in the games. One of my favorite moments comes from the Little Mermaid world. When you try to locate the keyhole for the world, King Triton stops you because he knows you are a Keyblade wielder and begins to lecture you that as the Keyblade wielder, you aren't supposed to meddle in other worlds. It's one of the few times in the whole series that a character outside your team knows the truth and that there are other worlds other than their own. My other favorite story moment comes initially after joining Donald and Goofy. You see the villains from all these Disney worlds being led by Maleficent, huddled around a glass ball looking at you and talking about how to handle you so you don't get in the way of their plans. It's not often you see all these characters interact with each other, and they even play off each other really well. My other favorite thing are the Ansem reports. Ansem is the main villain of this game. You learn that he was the leader of Hollow Bastion, one of the later worlds in the game, but during his research he fell into darkness and began to control the Heartless. He chronicles his research of the Heart into reports, which you get from defeating major bosses. If you want to learn more about the lore of Kingdom Hearts, these reports are great in-depth looks of the motivations of Ansem and his descent into darkness. Some of the notes also hold Easter eggs for later entries. It's kind of like how Demon Souls or Dark Souls uses their notes in a way to show the story if you want to actually learn more about the world that you're in. This game is far from perfect though, and there are plenty of elements that are frustrating and even date the game somewhat. I mentioned before that Sora's combat attacks can be slow, but movement is very stiff as well. While you have a high jump, it's hard to move around as you are in the air compared to other 3D games, and this game has more platforming than any others in the series. So when you attempt to reach an area and end up falling to a lower level, it can be very frustrating, especially when you're like, I know I just grabbed this edge. Some of the world's maps are also confusing as well. Places like Alice in Wonderland or the Tarzan worlds are easy to get lost in and can take over an hour to figure out if you're a newcomer to the game. And they're two of the very first worlds you visit too, so your entrance to the game is a little bit slow. I am pretty familiar with the game, but there are still certain areas I don't look forward to going through, especially when looking for collectibles. Monstro is easily the worst whenever it comes to this. I think the idea of exploring the whale and helping Pinocchio is a really fun idea. It's implemented pretty well too, but each room goes by chamber 1, 2, 3, etc., and they all look alike, with each doorway leading to a different room in a non-sequential order. And you don't have a world map either that shows where everything leads to, so you just need to be able to keep track of what room leads to what specific area and not get lost in it. But the most boring part is traveling to worlds via the gummy ship sections. The gummy ship is basically your spaceship that your party uses to travel from world to world. It's an on-rails shooter but with no flavor to it. The same song always plays with some variation to it. The enemy ships are easy to dodge or shoot down, and the obstacles are very bland to look at. It really kills the pacing of the game, and there's very little to speed it up. You can customize your ship to increase its weapons, defense, or speed, but you can really easily get through the game with the basic design, so there's no reason in changing up your ship design at all. You eventually get a piece that is automatically added so you can warp to worlds already visited. If you have yet to discover a world, then you still have to go through the main route. It's super boring and the most groan-inducing part of the game. Final Mix also introduces new enemies and special crafting materials you need in order to synthesize items in the Moogle shop. The crafting in this game is very rudimentary and easy to get, but gathering materials is very slow compared to other entries. To get some items, you will need new special crafting materials that only can be dropped by special Heartless, but they don't spawn in very often. Not only that, but when you defeat them, there's a chance those items will not drop at all. Now, there are abilities that you can equip to your party that will increase drop rates, but even with those, it's still tedious to go through. Now, this isn't required to beat the game, but if you want to fully complete it, there are achievements that are tied to this, including synthesizing every item and collecting all of your party's weapons. There is lots to do and explore that you can easily spend several hours without completing the main campaign of the game. I still haven't even covered some of the optional content that you can complete as well. So let's get into the latter half of the story and endgame. Spoilers ahead for the ending of Kingdom Hearts as well as optional content. So the party reaches the world of Hollow Bastion where they find Riku. He is able to summon Sora's Keyblade and says that he was the one fated to have it. Donald and Goofy, sticking with their mission a little bit too literally, go with Riku. Sora enters the castle and confronts Riku, and tells him that his power comes from his heart and the connection with his friends that he's made along the way. As Goofy and Donald take Sora's side, the Keyblade reappears in Sora's possession and Riku runs off. After venturing through the rest of the castle and defeating Maleficent, the party finds Kairi, who is unconscious with Riku looking over her. Riku, who has now fully embraced the power of darkness, is being controlled by Ansem, Seeker of Darkness. He tells Sora that Kairi is a Princess of Heart and is the last of the 7 Princesses of Heart needed to unlock the door to Kingdom Hearts. However, her heart is trapped inside Sora's body, and the only way to release it is with Riku's new weapon that can release hearts. How convenient! After beating the possessed Riku, Sora takes the weapon and stabs himself, releasing both his heart and Kairi's, and his body disappears. Donald and Goofy and Kairi begin to flee as they're being chased by Heartless, but that Heartless is actually you. Kairi realizes this, and with the power of her heart restores your body and you become whole again. Don't ask questions. That's just how it works. As you prepare to fall Ansem, Kairi gives you her lucky charm and you promise to return it to her. Now, I know all these details seem very minor and that I could have glossed over them, but you do need to remember these in order for you to get some of the later things that come into the series. So the trio go to the end of the world, a collection of fragmented worlds to defeat Ansem and restore the lost worlds taken by the Heartless. After fighting like 5 bosses back to back, Ansem reaches out to the door of Kingdom Hearts, believing it to be the ultimate source of darkness to power himself. But as it opens, a beam of light washes over him, destroying him finally. As the trio try to close the door, they find Riku, now back in control of his body, and Mickey Mouse on the other side. They tell Sora the only way to seal Kingdom Hearts is for them to be on the other side whenever it closes. The group is conflicted, but they have no other choice as the Heartless begin to swarm up to the door. So Sora and Mickey use their Keyblades to seal the door. As this happens, the destroyed worlds begin to reform, and you see Kairi being taken back to Destiny Islands. Sora shouts out to her, and he promises that he will be back with her again, and she shouts back that she knows he will, as the two get separated. It's an emotional ending that really shows, even after all the trouble that you went through, they still don't get to be together for their happy ending, and there's more to do. After the credits roll, Sora, Donald, and Goofy try to figure out how to find Riku and King Mickey when they see Pluto carrying a letter with the King's seal on it. As the trio sets off on a new adventure, the silent narrator from the beginning of the game states that Sora's destiny is to open the door to light. To me, this is a great first entry into a series. With a really far out concept that you need to go to Disney worlds in order to save the universe from being swallowed by darkness, it really manages to stick a landing that leaves you intrigued and wanting more. And, if you are wanting more, there is still plenty of things to do. Throughout the game, you will get access to tournaments at Olympus Coliseum where you can battle enemies from various worlds. Winning these tournaments will give you weapons and abilities. Also, while you're adventuring, you'll more than likely open a chest with Dalmatians in them. Yeah, this is one of the 99 Dalmatians from the 101 Dalmatians movie. Pongo and Perdita lost their puppies when their world vanished, and you'll be asked to help locate them. Finding the 99 puppies will net you valuable items and abilities as well, so it's worth your time. Finally, there are super bosses, 4 of which were included in the original game, but 1 was added to Final Mix. 2 of these can be fought at Olympus Coliseum in special one-on-one tournaments. The first is the Ice Titan from Hercules. The other is Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII, and I highly recommend waiting to fight him until your level is like in the 90s, because some of his attacks can take away massive amounts of health, and he can teleport as well. Beating these 2 will give you 2 new Keyblades, one with massive magic power and the other with massive attack power. The other 2 are special Heartless bosses. The first is Kurt Zisa in Agrabah. Defeating him will net you a special attack ability and a new Ansem report. The second is the Phantom, located in Big Ben in Neverland. Beating him will give you Stopka and a new Ansem report. The final and newest secret boss is called the Unknown and is located where you fought Maleficent. He is cloaked in a black hood and there's no audible dialogue, but does have subtitles when he's speaking to Sora. For those new to the series, it's a very unsettling boss, but for those who have played Kingdom Hearts 2, you'll know that this is the main villain from that game, Xemnas. He is by far the hardest and most unfair boss in the game. It will take a lot of patience, a lot of tries to defeat him if you are up to the challenge. I mean, this is literally the most unfair boss. He has a move where he will zap you and lock you from using your commands, and like in your command menu, you have to figure out which one will release it, but they're all scrolling really quickly, and if you touch the wrong one, you get zapped, and you lose health, and it just sucks because he's still attacking you, and So yeah, I definitely don't like this boss. But after you beat him, he will disappear and leave behind the final Ansem report. This is by far my most favorite report in the game, as Ansem talks about if the body is separated from the heart, then where does it go? A being that's neither light nor darkness, belonging nowhere, not truly existing. Thus he gives the name Nobodies, which are the new enemies introduced in Kingdom Hearts 2. The first game builds up a world that is more interconnected than it lets on, and is an early adapter of a JRPG that deviates from turn-based combat and fleshes out its real-time gameplay. Some of the platforming is reminiscent of that early 2000s era, but it improves upon and changes up the formula later on down the road. I recently came back to this game and forgot how much I do enjoy it, even though it's not my favorite in the series. If you haven't played this game yet, I highly recommend you pick it up. It's easily accessible and can be found on all major platforms and collection packs such as the 1.5 and 2.5 remix editions. I give Kingdom Hearts Final Mix an 8 out of 10. For those who have played Kingdom Hearts before, what do you think of it and what is your favorite part of the game? Let me know. You can tweet me at @CinephileGamers or follow me on patreon.com/CinephileGamersPodcast, where you can get Discord access and we can talk about these things or movies as well. I'll be going through all the Kingdom Hearts games, so stay tuned for those as well, because I will update on those series periodically. As always, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.